Okay, let's go ahead and continue our discussion in Chapter 4 today with simplifying expressions with rational exponents. In other words, so now the exponent is simply going to be a fraction of some sort, maybe 1/3, maybe 2/7, whatever it might be. So let's go ahead and get started with this. All right, so for example 1 here, they want you to simplify the expression, and basically they're asking you, in this case, they're asking you to see, well, is there a better thing I can say than 64 to the 1/3? Well, I know 64 to the first is 64, so it better be less than that. So let's go ahead and think of this. And the rule is going to be for us is going to be pretty simple. Here's my index, and here on top is my exponent, I should say. So fraction breaks down into exponent over index. Okay, so that's our rule from basically going from a fraction, a rational exponent, into a one where the radical is expressed. So to go ahead and simplify this further, now you guys all know this. You're like, oh, Mr. Roderick, 64. What number times itself 3 times is 64? That answer is 4. And we're all set. Okay. Now this next one, I'm going to show you two ways of doing this. What we just talked about here. I'm going to leave some space down here. Um, 7 to the first, put a 2 there. Oh, that's the square root of 7. So this is square root of 7 times the square root of 7, right? Square root of 7 times the square root of 7 is square root of 49. And hopefully you didn't even need that step because you said the square root of the same thing times the same thing is just that number. Okay. Now, before I show you a second way of doing this, let's take a step back to our properties of exponents that we know. And if I said, for example, x to the third times x to the sixth, well, that's x to the ninth, right? 3 and 6 is 9. We add our exponents in that spot. Bases are same here of 7, so nothing has changed. 1/2 plus 1/2, that's 1, so 7 to the first. So we get either one of these, we get 7 as our final result from a simplification. And you get to basically choose what method you want to use there. Okay? Hopefully, and again, depending on the setting, you know, one of these, you want to have both of these tools in your toolkit. Okay, example C, for example, I'm going to show you example C, and I could see why people would um, do it each of these ways. So let's start with radical expressions this time. So we've got a index here, exponent there, and let's do the same thing over here. Uh, index or exponent, excuse me, and index there. Okay. Okay. Does that work? Can I multiply those? Yeah. The 3's are the same here. So I can go ahead and multiply under the square root, or the cube root sign, I should say, and I get cube root of 125. You say, oh, I know that number. What number times itself 3 times is 125? That answer is 5. Now, alternatively, you could have done this. Okay. 25. Let's go ahead and substitute for 25. Okay, what power of 5 is 25? That's 5 squared. So 5 squared goes in for 25 right here, and the 1/3 comes along. Okay. Since I know my properties of exponents, I know this stays the same. 5 to the 1/3 times 5 to the 2 times 1/3 is 2/3. And you guys all say, okay, the bases of 5 are the same. Yay. So that means I can multiply these guys together, and I get 5 to the 1/3 and 2/3. 1/3 and 2/3 is a grand total of 1, so 5 to the first, which is 5. Okay. So, you know, depending on what you like, there's two ways of doing that same problem right there. Okay? Okay, let's move along here. and take a problem where they've got us in a fraction form here or as a decimal, either way, and they want it in radical form. So they want a radical in their final answer is what they're saying there. They want a radical in their final answer. So we've learned here today that, well, my index is this bottom number, and my exponent is this 2. And that should make sense. I'm going to build on something we learned last week again with simplifying exponents when we had something like this. Uh, and it didn't divide out evenly. Remember we said, okay, we're dividing, but if it doesn't divide out evenly, let's go ahead and say, okay, 14 divided by 3 is 4. So x to the fourth comes out, and 2 were left over. So, excuse me, x squared goes there. Well, we're using this same idea here. This, if I'm going to say my final answer is x to the 2/7, then I can see that's less than 1x there. I couldn't simplify that any further. Okay. Now, with this decimal here, they're basically the skills. There's two skills involved. Number one is going ahead and turning this into a fraction. Okay. So that's step one. And then step two is saying, okay, again, properties of exponents. What do I do with negative exponents? I move them downstairs to make them happy. So 1 over y to the 2/5. Okay. So now, last thing here, we'll touch this up and say, okay, now they want this in radical form. So I got 1 over, and my index is 5, and my exponent is 2. Now, I don't, the only reason I don't love this problem here is because look what we've left. We've left a radical in the denominator, and we typically don't do that. But if they just say put it in radical form for this type of problem, we're okay with that. But typically we do not leave radicals in the denominator. Okay? Okay, let's go ahead and continue with this and practice this real quick. So this is going to be hopefully real simple for us. We're going to say, okay, here we've got c to the 3/4. Because what they're asking us to do is put it in exponential form. In other words, go the other direction. On your quiz, you'll be asked to go in both directions here. And b to the 5/3. There's more than one b here. There's more than one b here. And those are your two answers there. Okay. All right, so now we've got all these skills we can go ahead and simplify in a setting like this with something that doesn't look so great, but without a calculator. Okay, if I know my number, my negative 27 is the same thing as negative 3 to the third. Oops, I get put my close my parenthesis off too fast there. Negative 3 to the third is the same as negative 27 to the 2/3. And now I know since I multiply exponents here, this is out here we've got 3 times 2/3. Those 3's cancel, and I get minus 3 squared. What's minus 3 squared? Minus 3 squared is a grand total of 9. So negative 27 to the 2/3 is 9. Okay? Let's go ahead and practice with the same thing down here. 25, I know that that's 5 squared, right? So 5 squared, negative 2.5 is negative 5 over 2. Okay, so negative 5 over 2. Okay, so we multiply those, and we get, let's see, 5 to the 2's cancel, and I get 5 to the negative 5. Okay, again, property of exponents. Okay, and then I've got 1 over 5 to the 5th. And if you left it like that without a calculator, I'd be perfectly fine with that. If you had your calculator, you just say this is 1 over 31/25. Okay. And one more example for you, kind of the cherry on top. This is simplifications, and we're adding all kind of what we've done before, and adding all these characteristics together here. And let's see, 243. This one might be kind of, if you were just going from scratch, again, 243 is not a number I'd expect you to recognize completely, but you might look at here and say, okay, if I want to rewrite this as, some number to a power as an exponent, because these are all exponents here and here, well, let's see, there's a 3 there. So if I'm thinking, you know, 4s to the something, 5s to the something don't make sense. So let's go ahead and check. I know, hopefully I know 3 to the third is 27. Times 3 again is 81. And times 3 again is 243. I mean, that's pretty, that's not, you guys can all figure that out, okay? So this is definitely 3 to the fifth here. So let's rewrite this. 3 to the fifth, a to the minus 10, all to the 2/5. Okay, so now these fives cancel, and look at how nice they are to us. We get 3 squared here, and negative 10 times 2 is negative 20 over 5, so that's negative 4, a to the minus 4. And I know from what we've done with property of exponents that this negative exponent can't stay, so he's got to switch floors. So 3 squared, let's go ahead and call that 9. And I'm going to move this to the right here. 3 squared is 9, and a to the negative fourth has to move to the denominator to get happy, and I got a to the fourth there. And that's your final answer. That's simplified. Okay? Thank you very much. I hope you're having a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow to come in and do the classwork, okay?